History in Decades. Bonus episode, History versus Hollywood as it pertains to the French and Indian War. If you've seen The Last of the Mohicans, you've stepped right into the heart of the French and Indian War. And if you've watched The Patriot, you caught glimpses of it in the flashbacks that shaped its main character. But how much of what Hollywood showed us was real? Hello friends, I'm Jim Rand, your AI host for History in Decades. Welcome to this special bonus episode where we separate fact from fiction in one of the most important and often overlooked conflicts in early American history, the French and Indian War. Let's start with the films. The Last of the Mohicans, 1992, with Daniel Day-Lewis, is set during the real 1757 siege of Fort William Henry. The movie captures the beauty and danger of the frontier, the clash of cultures, and the brutality of the war. It takes dramatic license with characters and some events, but it's rooted in the real tensions of the time. In The Patriot, 2000, Mel Gibson's character Benjamin Martin is portrayed as a veteran of the French and Indian War. The flashbacks show the trauma he carried from that earlier conflict, a detail that helps explain his reluctance to fight again years later. While dramatized, it reflects the real experience of many veterans who later fought in the Revolution. There's also the 1940 film Northwest Passage, which focuses on the legendary Rogers Rangers and a real raid during the war. Now let's move beyond Hollywood and look at what actually happened. What we call the French and Indian War in America was actually the North American part of a much larger global conflict known as the 7 Years' War. While colonists fought in the forests, battles were also happening in Europe, India, the Caribbean, and beyond. The French were fighting to protect and expand their empire in North America. Their primary goal was control of the Ohio River Valley and the Great Lakes region, the heart of the lucrative fur trade. They wanted to link Canada with Louisiana, maintain strong alliances with native tribes, and keep the British colonies confined to the Atlantic coast. Those native Indian alliances were central to the war. On the French side were the Huron, Ottawa, Ojibwa, Potawatomi, Shawnee, Delaware, Mingo, and Abenaki. On the British side were the Mohawk, Oneida, and Tuscarora, key members of the Iroquois Confederacy, along with some Cherokee later in the conflict. Many tribes tried to stay neutral or play both sides, knowing the outcome would reshape their world. One of the starkest differences between the movies and reality is the fighting itself. European armies relied on linear tactics, soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder in open fields, firing coordinated volleys, then charging with bayonets. In the dense forests of North America, this approach was often disastrous. Native warriors and colonial rangers perfected guerrilla or woodland warfare, ambushes from behind trees and rocks, hit-and-run attacks, and psychological warfare with war cries and scalping. The British eventually adapted by creating specialized units like Rogers Rangers. The real siege of Fort William Henry in 1757 is a prime example. After the British surrendered, some of the French allied native warriors attacked the departing column, killing and capturing many. The event shocked both sides and became known as a massacre. The Last of the Mohicans movie dramatizes it powerfully, but the real tragedy left lasting bitterness. Rogers Rangers conducted some of the most daring operations of the war, including the 1759 raid on the Abenaki village of St. Francis, a story brought to the screen in Northwest Passage. While soldiers and rangers fought, ordinary frontier families suffered greatly. Raids destroyed farms and homes. Many were killed or taken captive. Militia service pulled men from their fields, and churches became centers of comfort and prayer. The economic engine behind much of the conflict was the fur trade, which tied European powers and native tribes together in a web of commerce and competition. Even before major fighting erupted, Benjamin Franklin proposed the Albany Plan of Union in 1754, an early attempt at colonial cooperation for defense. It didn't pass, but it planted important ideas. When Britain finally won, the consequences were far-reaching. The French were driven from North America, Many native tribes lost their strongest European ally and saw their power decline. In 1763, Britain issued the Proclamation of 1763, trying to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. This angered many Americans who had fought expecting new land opportunities. Many colonists interpreted the British victory through a religious lens. They saw it as evidence of divine providence, tying into the spirit of the Great Awakening and reinforcing ideas of moral purpose and God's favor on their cause. Perhaps most significantly, the war gave thousands of colonial men real military experience. Figures like George Washington learned leadership and woodland warfare in ways that would prove invaluable just a decade later in the fight for independence. The human cost was immense. Thousands dead from battle, disease, and raids. Families were shattered. The frontier was devastated. Yet through it all, ordinary people demonstrated remarkable resilience, leaning on faith, community, and sheer determination. Closing reflection. The French and Indian War is the conflict that made the American Revolution possible. It removed the French threat, gave colonists valuable military experience and confidence, left Britain with massive debt that led to new taxes on the colonies, and taught Americans hard lessons about self-reliance and unity. Stability isn't given to us. It must be guarded by vigilant, self-reliant people who are committed to passing it on to the next generation. If you enjoyed this deeper look at the French and Indian War, please rate and review the show. It really helps us grow. Share this episode with someone who loves history or great movie discussions. I'm Jim Rand. Thanks for listening to History in Decades. Until next time, stay rooted in the lessons history provides.